10 years ago, on November 28, 2013, Lady Gaga and the Muppets Holiday Spectacular aired on ABC. While on the surface, this special, made to promote Lady Gaga's fourth album Art Pop and the Muppets' upcoming 2014 film Muppets Most Wanted, may not seem like anything special. But if you dig deeper, there's a fascinating story here. This is the story of a singer, an album, a group of puppets, the holiday special that brought them together, and how things weren't the same after. But in order to understand everything, we're gonna have to go back. The year is 2011, and Lady Gaga is riding high off of the very successful launch of her third studio album, Born This Way. Because of this massive success, ABC decided to greenlight her very own holiday special, which would air on Thanksgiving night of 2011. A Very Gaga Thanksgiving would feature several live performances of songs from Born This Way and other hits from before that album, as well as several performances of Christmas songs, which would later on be released as an EP. Other segments in the special included a cooking segment, an interview, and a part where she makes art with a bunch of kids.
Because mine is not nearly as nice as your guys. It's more abstract. Have you heard of Jackson Pollock?
Following the huge success of Born This Way, Lady Gaga would soon begin work on her next album, but things wouldn't go as planned. While writing her next album, she was also on tour for Born This Way. During one performance in the Born This Way ball, she would suffer a devastating injury on stage, a labral tear in her right hip. Despite the immense pain and the fact that she mainly had to be moved around in a wheelchair for the time being, Lady Gaga powered through and finished the Born This Way ball, oftentimes just doing much more limited movement on stage. The concept of being in so much pain while on stage, but still carrying on because of the cheers of her fans, would be the inspiration behind the first song released for her next album. The song Applause would release in August of 2013, accompanied by a music video. By now, Lady Gaga had been fully healed up from her labral tear, and, as a reference to the song's inspiration, several shots of Applause's music video feature her carrying a prop of her leg. Applause would be the first song released for the album Art Pop, set for a November 11th, 2013 release date. Art Pop, a play on the art form pop art of course, is meant to be a look into the world of popular culture and art's influence on it. The album deconstructs icons, what they mean, their destruction, and how society builds fantasies around them. The album also goes into Lady Gaga's experiences with love and her issues with drug abuse following her injury. The song Aura on the album puts it best. The album's about dance, sex, art, pop, and tech. To say the promotion for Art Pop was big would be an understatement. The album had a huge push at the 2013 VMAs, where Lady Gaga returned to sing Applause live. There was a mobile app released to go alongside the album, and who can forget Gaga Doll, a life-size, photo-accurate mannequin of Lady Gaga, which doubles as a fully functioning stereo system. 4 of these were built and released exclusively in Japan. Art Pop's November release allowed it to have a large holiday push, with Gaga appearing at the 2013 Jingle Bell Ball to promote the album.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, I'm at Capitol. Promise I will do my best at a family-friendly show.
In addition to this, a new holiday special was put into production, once again being put onto ABC. For this, Lady Gaga teamed up with a certain group of felt performers that she had been a fan of ever since her childhood, a group known as the cast of Eureka's Castle. I'm kidding, it's the Muppets. Obviously. While A Very Gaga Thanksgiving released on Thanksgiving of 2011, so too did the 2011 Muppet movie, which served as a sort of reboot and revitalization of the Muppets. The film notably introduced Walter, a Muppet superfan who has to get the Muppet team back together to stop an evil oil baron from destroying their old theater. Walter gets the gang back together, they put on a big show, and he officially becomes one of them. The Muppets had had a pretty rough time in the early 2000s. So many projects were planned by them and then cancelled. And while the Muppets were bought out by Disney in the early 2000s, Disney didn't really do all that much with them. The Muppets did some miscellaneous press stuff for Disney and the Disney parks. They had a straight-to-TV movie called A Muppets Christmas Letters to Santa in 2008, which really isn't all that big of a project. And also in the late 2000s, the Muppets broke into the world of the internet, releasing several videos, many of which went viral, with easily the most iconic one being the Muppets Bohemian Rhapsody in 2009. So with all these sparse, miscellaneous things the Muppets were doing in the late 2000s, it only made sense to try to bring them back into the mainstream with a big movie. Luckily, it worked. 2011's The Muppets was a massive hit with both critics and audiences. It did pretty well financially, and it even won an Academy Award for the song Man or Muppet in 2012. This movie brought the Muppets back. Back to the big screen, back to the mainstream. It acted as sort of a reboot, and it was honestly very successful with that. It brought back several characters that hadn't been seen in decades, and brought in a bunch of characters that had been sparsely used throughout the past few decades. It cemented the original Muppet Show cast as the main Muppet cast going forward, alongside some other later additions like Pepe the King Prawn, Bobo the Bear, and of course Walter, who was introduced in this movie. With its success, a sequel was greenlit. Originally titled The Muppets Again, it would later become known as Muppets Most Wanted. Lady Gaga has been a big, lifelong Muppet fan. She even named one of her dogs after Fozzie Bear. And pretty soon after starting her professional career in 2008, she began working with the Muppets in different capacities. In 2009, she brought Kermit the Frog as her date to the VMA Awards. In 2010, the Jim Henson Creature Shop constructed a massive monster puppet for her for on-stage use in the Monster Ball tour. And probably most famously, she once wore a dress made entirely out of Kermit the Frog plushes as a statement against people wearing animal furs, which she claimed looked like, quote, a bunch of dead Muppets. She's had a lot of connections with the Muppets over the years, and I'd definitely love to do a full deep dive video on her, just so that I could explain the full story of the Kermit date and the Kermit dress, thank you. A scene for Lady Gaga was actually written into 2011's The Muppets, where she was supposed to have a dance-off against Miss Piggy to Vogue by Madonna. No, I'm not kidding. Unfortunately, this scene was cut in order to reduce the total runtime of the film, and it's unknown if it was ever filmed or not. The interesting thing is, if this cameo wasn't cut, it would actually have been her first ever film role, predating her actual film debut in 2013's Machete Kills. Regardless, Lady Gaga would end up having a cameo at the beginning of 2014's Muppets Most Wanted during We're Doing a Sequel. Muppets Most Wanted would release in early 2014, and thus would be promoted throughout late 2013, the same time Lady Gaga was promoting and releasing Art Pop. See how it all comes together? And so, in order to promote both Muppets Most Wanted and Art Pop in one place, Lady Gaga and the Muppets Holiday Spectacular was born. The Muppets were still a pretty interesting choice to guest host, as Art Pop had the infamous Parental Advisory Explicit Content label on it. As such, the songs chosen to be performed in the holiday special only make up about half of the album, as the other half features several explicit and dirtier songs, some of which go into some pretty heavy topics. On another note, this is just an interesting case of the Muppets being a guest star in someone else's special versus what we're used to, which is a celebrity guest starring in a Muppet special. This is Lady Gaga's special first and foremost, and the Muppets are the guest stars. The combination of the Muppets, the Art Pop album, and the fact that it's also a holiday special with several segments of the Muppets and Lady Gaga talking about the holidays and singing several Christmas songs gives the special a pretty interesting feel. But hey, we've spent enough time on the background. Let's break down this entire hour-long special, scene by scene, song by song, and Muppet appearance by Muppet appearance. Let's go. The special begins with Pepe the King Prawn walking on stage, telling everyone that he's so excited for them to watch his first ever holiday special, Pepe's Holiday on Shaved Ice Television Spectacular. But an announcer breaks in, telling Pepe that this isn't his special.
Pepe, this isn't your special.
You would ruin my dream?
Yes, it's Lady Gaga's.
Ay, Mama is going to be very disappointed, okay?
Fun fact, this announcer is voiced by Tom Kane, who's done a bunch of voice work and announcement work over the years, but you'll probably remember him best as the announcer in Star Wars The Clone Wars.
This isn't your special. It's
Count Dooku and his former assassin, Ventress.
Tom Kane then officially announces the special, and we begin an intro segment narrated by Lady Gaga. In this kind of weirdly 80-yard opening, she talks about how much she loves the holiday season and how important Muppet holiday specials are to her, which is why she's reached out to the Muppets to help spread some holiday cheer. Shout out Luncheon Counter Monster cameo. I don't know what special this picture is from, or why he's here, but, you know, good for him. After the special's many guest stars are announced, we're then thrust into our first musical number, Venus. Venus was, well, sorry, but I can't go further with the story without telling you all what happened behind the scenes of Art Pop. Everything behind the creation of Art Pop was a behind-the-scenes disaster. Lady Gaga and DJ White Shadow, who collaborated with her on a lot of the album, have discussed several times since the album's release that it was a traumatic time for both of them. The album was plagued with a difficult production and the studio being overbearing. Art Pop is seen as a very dark era in the minds of a lot of Lady Gaga fans, and it was a very dark era for her and her team, and the whole thing was a mess. Songs were cut from the album right before release. One song called Brooklyn Nights was cut from the album and was supposed to be released later on through the app I mentioned earlier, but this never happened. The song would eventually leak and even be performed live once, but it's still never officially been released. But not only that, Lady Gaga and DJ White Shadow had created enough songs to make an entire second album. Meant to be called Art Pop Act 2 and released after the first one, it was full of a lot of more experimental songs versus the more commercial-friendly songs of the first album. This era was supposed to be very experimental, and while a lot of what made it onto Art Pop is pretty experimental, it was supposed to be even more so, and a lot of corporate meddling stopped it from that, and of course, canceled the sequel. But the story doesn't stop there. Venus, the first song performed in this special, was supposed to be a single. It was supposed to get a music video, but it was canceled and has never seen the light of day. And while Venus was sold as a digital single, the original plans for it just never came to fruition, and that's not the only music video that was canceled from this era. The video for a song called Do What You Want would also be scrapped, for a plethora of other reasons that I won't get into here. This awkwardly left Applause as the only song on the album to have a music video, which is not common for Lady Gaga, who typically has 3 to 5 music videos for each of her albums. The following March, Art Pop's second and final music video would release. Called GUY, an Art Pop film, it would be 11 minutes long, and would have this very long length because it combined 3 songs into one music video. Art Pop, GUY, which takes up the bulk of the video, and Venus. Side note, this video features a cameo from former Minecraft YouTuber SkyDoesMinecraft, who types /game-mode Art Pop into his computer. I had nowhere else to put this, but I just had to mention it. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get back to the special. Venus is, from what I've seen, a pretty fan-favorite song, and I'm not gonna lie, it's not bad. This seems like the type of song that would be single material, and it's a shame that it didn't fully work out. Venus, of course, refers to the painting Birth of Venus. Can I show that on YouTube without censoring it? And in a lot of art prop promotion, Lady Gaga takes on a sort of pseudo-exaggerated Venus image, with this big, crazy, windswept wig and a seashell bikini representing, of course, Venus rising out of the seashell. The Birth of Venus image can actually be seen in the background of the art pop album. This, of course, is meant to tie into the album's theme of art and popular culture, and the seashell motif is pretty prominent throughout this entire era, so if you see it at any other point in this video, that's why. It's interesting to see how the Muppets contribute to all of the songs here. We have Lady Gaga backed up by the Electric Mayhem, with Kermit, Walter, Rolf, Fozzie, Gonzo, and Scooter walking around her and occasionally singing along to Venus. It also cannot be understated that Walter has some insanely hardcore dance moves. Regardless of what you think of Walter, you have to agree. This guy's dance moves go hard. Also, shout out to the one non-Muppet guitarist. You're doing great, buddy. One thing that I really respect and like about this special is just how well it caters to both Muppet fans and Lady Gaga fans. The Muppets are interacting and having these goofy little dance moves and being pulled back and forth all throughout the song, but if you're a Lady Gaga fan and just want to see her perform, it really isn't major enough that it takes away from it. And if you're a Muppet fan, you get to see all this fun Muppet stuff going on in the background. In my opinion, it's a really solid compromise here. After the second verse, the Muppets, except for the Electric Mayhem, actually leave, giving Lady Gaga a lot more room to move around here. And it should also be noted that this is actually not the exact same as the album version of Venus. There are some slight changes with the order of parts, some parts are skipped over a little bit, some parts are just musical breaks, and one line is censored. The bridge features her listing off several different planets, you have people carrying different planets around, and the line attached to the planet Uranus is actually censored. I can't play either version of the song because I'll probably get copyright claimed, so I'll leave it up to my editor to put the original and edited lyric on screen. Thank you, Marina. Also, to my editor, please play a clip here of the part where Dr. Teeth plays the keyboard with his nose. Thank you. It's right after the bridge. After the song wraps up, Statler and Waldorf appear off to the side, and as always, they have something to say about it.
That opening was catchy. So is malaria.
Our next scene gives us our first look at the overarching plot of the special, and it's a pretty classic Muppet storyline. They need to figure out what to do for the finale. Miss Piggy is on the phone with somebody named Bernie, which is actually a super deep cut to a running joke that's appeared in several Muppet productions. Bernie Brillstein was the name of Jim Henson's manager, so in any production with the Muppets, whenever they have to go on a call with their agent, he's always referred to as Bernie. Bernie the agent is a character that's never been seen, but he's always consistently the one that Muppets are calling when they need to talk to their agent. He's even been referenced in Sesame Street episodes. The image I've been using right now is actually Kermit calling Bernie in a Sesame Street sketch. The talent agent that finds Kermit at the beginning of the first Muppet movie, portrayed by Dom DeLuise, is also named Bernie as a reference to Bernie Brillstein. Anyway, Miss Piggy's on the phone with Bernie the agent, asking him to get the Marine Corps band and a bunch of pyrotechnics and wires because Miss Piggy is going to star in the final number, and this pig is gonna fly. Her words, not mine. Then Kristen Bell shows up, who's one of the show's other guest stars. And it's really crazy to think that this special came out the same weekend as Frozen, where Kristen Bell, of course, voices the main character Anna. Kristen Bell is super excited to be there and starts fangirling. Miss Piggy, of course, thinks that she's excited to see her, but she's just excited to see Lady Gaga. A disappointed Miss Piggy clutches on to the autograph paper that she was going to give to Kristen Bell.
I don't normally do this, but can I have an autograph? I need paper. Whew. Wow.
perfect.
Photoshop, huh? We can use the back.
Okay. Do you have something I can write on, a surface?
Piggy, do you mind?
Thanks. Oh, hey, Miss Piggy. Thanks so much.
Sure.
The two walk off together, and Kermit comments on how beautiful and talented they are, starting an ongoing subplot throughout the special of Miss Piggy being jealous of Lady Gaga. We then get the first of several Muppet interview segments, where several Muppet characters are asked what their favorite holiday memory is. We start off by seeing the Electric Mayhem, including Lips, who was actually absent from the Venus performance earlier. Gonzo tells Rizzo his favorite holiday memory is the same as everyone else's, putting tapioca in his shorts and sliding down the chimney. A group of Muppet chickens seem to know what they think, but the Electric Mayhem just can't come up with something.
I've been using the same reed since '62.
Then we get Kermit's answer, which is great, and I'm just going to play it here.
As a frog, I always loved the old holiday Yule log. Great place to sit in the swamp until they lit it.
We then get our first commercial break, and the title card reintroducing the special seems to be playing a souped-up instrumental version of the art pop song Gypsy for a few seconds. That song will come back later. Anyway, we're introduced to a new Muppet segment, where Kermit and Scooter, upon an absent Lady Gaga's request, try to audition characters for the special. The first audition is from the amazing Carl, who, if you haven't already guessed by now, is the Muppet character Big Mean Carl, whose whole thing is that he eats things. And when I say he eats things, I mean he eats living things, typically smaller Muppets. He says he's going to do a magic trick with a little bunny named Albert, performed by Dave Goelz. While we see these Muppet bunnies used all the time, none of them have ever been referred to as Albert before or since.
I didn't agree to this.
Oh, maybe that's why. Okay. The next audition is Gonzo. Sam Eagle appears next to say, "I didn't audition, I'm American." And then he walks off. The next audition is Shakespeare's Ramlet, and we get an appearance from this big Muppet ram who says, "to ba or not to ba." You could have seen that joke coming from a mile away. This sheep previously appeared in 1994's Muppet Classic Theater in the Boy Who Cried Wolf segment, where he was referred to as Norman. Here, he's voiced by Matt Vogel. Certainly an interesting character inclusion. I'm sure they came up with the Ramlet joke first and then found a pre-existing puppet for it later. Pepe appears, once again trying to ice skate, but he crashes into the camera. Kermit and Scooter see one last audition, which just turns out to be Carl again, who now tries to eat Kermit. After they run away, Fozzie appears.
Hey, I'm not too late for the audition, am I? Everybody loves puppets.
We then get a very awkward cut to the next song, which is Applause.
And now, applause.
For Applause, Lady Gaga is fully surrounded by her backing band as well as several of her dancers, while also holding this blue orb, which was synonymous with promotion for art pop. Honestly, I don't really know what it's supposed to represent. Maybe it's like the pearl inside of the seashell, or it's just a giant glowing blue orb. Could just be that one. I'm honestly not sure, but hey, at least Lady Gaga has mastered the power of Fushigi. Just like with Venus, the version of Applause performed here is a little different than the original version, with some parts being a bit stripped down with the instrumentals. Really solid performance of the song. The Muppets aren't included in this segment at all, and the dance seems to be pretty standard for performances of Applause. So I guess we should move on to the next segment. Before the next commercial break, we cut to another interview segment. This time, the Electric Mayhem is asked what do the holidays mean to them. And just like the first segment, none of them could come up with an answer. Zoot comments that it means it's time for him to clean his spit valve. Thanks, Zoot. This is the part in the special where I mentioned the fact that in 2023's The Muppets Mayhem, a group of rabid Lady Gaga fans, aka Little Monsters, that's the fanbase name, attack the Electric Mayhem violently. And then they do it again in Minecraft. I'm sorry, I couldn't keep seeing them in the special without mentioning that. After the next commercial break, we get an appearance from Elton John. Elton John, of course, iconically appeared with the Muppets in Season 2 of The Muppet Show, Elton John has also worked with Lady Gaga on a few occasions, including, most recently, they did a song together on her 2020 album Chromatica. The two perform a duet of Benny and the Jets, with Elton John occasionally changing the lyrics to Gaga and the Jets. This is actually the second time that Elton John has performed Benny and the Jets in a Muppet production, since he also sang it back in his Muppet Show episode. Anyway, after this, they move on to their next duet, Art Pop, of course the titular song of the Art Pop album. Compared to the much calmer original track, this special's version of Art Pop is really amped up and over the top. It sounds really intense versus the original. During the final verse, the Muppets come in to sing and dance along. The same Muppets from the Venus segment appear, now with the addition of Camilla the Chicken. After this, Statler and Waldorf make a comment on the lack of holiday songs in the special so far. After this, we get another segment of the Muppets being interviewed, with Gonzo and Rizzo, the Electric Mayhem, and a pack of chickens, all being asked, what's the best gift you've ever gotten? As you'd probably expect by now, Gonzo's answer is weird, decorative custard shields. The Electric Mayhem don't know what to say at first, but then all answer random things at the same time, and the chickens just, start pecking the floor. After the next commercial breaks, we get our first big behind-the-scenes scene with Lady Gaga and the Muppets. She thanks a very large group of Muppet characters for being there, but tells them they still need to figure out what to do for the finale. Also, Pepe is massaging her leg.
Just let me know if I press too hard, okay, or not hard enough. Four hands, no waiting.
Just the next person to add to Pepe's never-ending list of celebrities he's flirted with. The Muppets all try to pitch in their own ideas, with Gonzo continuing to be the consistently funniest character.
Oh, me! Chickens!
And?
I didn't get any further than that.
Kristen Bell suggests that they do something with puppets, which is immediately turned down. Walter then gives his suggestion.
You, a vat of organic cold-pressed honey, 50,000 fire ants, and a trumpet.
I didn't know we were going for the obvious.
Dr. Teeth has an idea and then immediately forgets it. Why is the joke they keep making with abandonness that they're forgetful? I ironically don't remember that being a thing for any of them, other than Zoot. The Swedish chef pitches in his suggestion.
Oh, if it is fernige, is fernige,
Well, I did ask for indescribable.
Chilland, of course, auditions his famous Boomerang Fish act. Then Dr. Bunsen Honeydew suggests that she comes out wearing the Muppet Labs bubble wrap dress, which Beaker models. Side note, when I was younger, I could have sworn I remembered Lady Gaga wearing a dress made entirely out of bubble wrap. And she has worn, these big bubbles before. I don't think I was thinking of those. I think I was thinking of what Beaker wears in this. Lady Gaga trusts that the Muppets will come up with something good, but she has to go because she has 15 seconds to curtain. A very cute callback. The next song performed is Manicure, stylized as Man I Cure, and it seems to be unaltered from its original incarnation. The Muppets once again don't appear here, so I'm going to use Gagapedia, the Lady Gaga wiki, which became my personal best friend while making this video, to give you all some fun facts about Manicure. Manicure's leaked demo includes a bridge that isn't in the final version of the song. It's a sort of spoken word section of the song. I'll have my editor put the lyrics on screen because once again I can't play it. Anyway, Manicure, the song, of course, has a double meaning. It's called Manicure, and it's called Man I Cure. The song is about getting ready to go out and pursue someone, hence the double meaning. Anyway, the performance of the song is so powerful that it accidentally blows a fuse in Waldorf's pacemaker. After this, we get another Muppets Only segment, where Beaker, the Swedish chef, and Animal perform Deck the Halls. Pairing up these three for songs was something that was pretty popular in the late 2000s and into the early 2010s. Having the three most significant Muppet characters that don't speak regular English interact together and try to perform songs has always been something that's pretty funny, and I always found it pretty interesting that these three characters never really interact outside of these segments. This whole segment kind of acts as a spiritual successor to a viral video released a few years prior on the Muppets YouTube, where these three characters did the Carol of the Bells. Just a few weeks after this special aired, that video would be re-released online, repackaged as a Muppisode. Before the next commercial break, we get another Muppet interview segment. This time around, characters are asked what the most inappropriate gift is. Kermit responds, a do-it-yourself dissection kit. Now the special doesn't clarify if these are gifts that they've been given or just what the worst gift they could think of for themselves would be. Has someone given Kermit a do-it-yourself dissection kit? Who wants Kermit dead? Actually, don't answer that. Gonzo says the most inappropriate gift for him would be a safety harness and the chickens say something. I don't know if they're chickens. This is like the 4th time they've shown up. At the start of the next part of the special, the announcer introduces Lady Gaga and Kermit the Frog, as the two are stationed at her piano. It's nice to see these two just have a calm conversation. Kermit talks about how big crowds can be and how sometimes it could feel very lonely, especially during the holiday season. Lady Gaga agrees, and says that she's actually written a song about feeling lonely while on the road. I really like this part. It's just a really sweet, calm conversation between two people talking about feeling lonely. It doesn't really go for any jokes. It really works pretty well. Kermit is, of course, the perfect choice for this scene. While we all love a classic Kermit freakout, he's always great for those quieter scenes.
I mean, I love my friends, and I usually travel with them, but, you know, there's just times when you just get lonely, you know?
Yeah.
I get a little blue.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you're green, though, Kermit.
Well, yeah, but and I don't look good when I'm blue. You know, it's strange.
Yeah, frogs aren't blue. Frogs aren't blue.
Checkmate, Lady Gaga. Kermit asks her to play the song about feeling lonely, but Lady Gaga confesses that she's never performed it before. Kermit jokes that he's never sung it before, so he'd like to try some parts. The song in question is called Gypsy. It's a song you've been hearing a souped-up instrumental version of whenever the special comes back from commercial. Lady Gaga mentions that this is her first time ever performing the song live, and that's actually true. This entire special was filmed throughout early October. The only official dates I could find were October 8th and 9th. These were both shooting days for it. The first time that the song was performed for the public would be on October 24th, 2013, during an art pop listening party event at a nightclub in Germany. On November 10th, it would be performed during Art Rave, which was Art Pop's launch party event. And it would be performed for the first time on television on November 16th, 2013, when Lady Gaga hosted Saturday Night Live. And this special, of course, would air about a week later on November 28th. So, although it was the 4th performance of Gypsy released, it was actually the first time she performed it on stage. When she says that in the special, she's not lying. That's not something they made up for the segment. That's actually the truth, and I think that's pretty cool. So anyway, she then begins to sing Gypsy, and this is, in my opinion, the best song here. Look, I'm not a music critic, but this is by far my favorite track. It's this really slow, very sweet song about not wanting to be alone forever and traveling with someone, finding someone to travel with. Lady Gaga really gives it her all here, and seeing Kermit join in is just the most adorable thing. I always love it when Muppet specials are able to have little calm moments, because the Muppets are always so hectic, but just being able to slow down for that little bit, sing a nice, sweet song, something like I'm Going to Go Back There Someday in the Muppet movie, right? Where there's all this hectic craziness, and then there's just a little moment, a little slow, calm moment for the characters to sing how they're feeling. And Gypsy is that song, not only for this special, but also for the Art Pop album as a whole. Gypsy, for reference, is the penultimate song on the album. So all of the songs we've heard before, other than Applause, which is the album's last track, come before Gypsy. So all of these more sort of intense techno-esque songs like Venus and Manicure all come before this. This is sort of at a very slow moment in the album. This and the song that comes before it called Dope are just these calmer, like more depressing songs. If you listen through the whole album, you could tell that these two songs are placed where they were for a reason. Anyway, back to the special. Look at Kermit go. I love how he's just bobbing around, he's laughing, he's just having the best time singing along to this song. Just like with the other songs in the special, this performance of Gypsy is a little different than the album version, with some parts being sung in a slightly different key. There's also a very strange line alteration. In the original song she says, like Dorothy on the yellow brick, hope my ruby shoes get us there quick. And here she says, hope my ruby shoes get me there quick. And I just think that's kind of weird because, you know, on the album she sings it alone, and here it's a duet, and she replaced us with me. The bridge also alters a line. For context, in the original version of the song, during the bridge, she speaks as if she's a man asking her to come with him, and she says, I'm a man without a home, but I think with you I could spend my life. This line is given to Kermit, and he says,
Well, I'm a frog without a pond, but I think with you I could spend my entire life.
and if that doesn't absolutely melt your heart, then I don't know what will. In the final segment of the song, Lady Gaga lists a bunch of different countries to travel to. When mentioning Germany, she says, I don't speak German, but I try. This is actually a reference to another one of her songs, a track on Born This Way, which prominently features her saying, I don't speak German, but I can if you like. Here, Kermit replies that he doesn't speak German either. Kermit is so wholesome here, man. I really love this segment. If you are to seek out any part of this special, watch this part. I wish I could play it with the audio. Their voices go surprisingly well together, and I just love what Kermit adds here. After this, we cut to commercial, but not before another interview segment. In this one, Gonzo asks Kristen Bell what a good holiday is to her. They both agree that it involves eating a lot of sugar and then passing out. The announcer mentions that in the next segment, Joseph Gordon-Levitt will perform. And when we cut back from commercial, yeah, he's just there. No, official introduction. It just cuts to him and Lady Gaga singing. Now, I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he's great. And he's another person that's done a ton of stuff with the Muppets. This was actually his first appearance with the Muppets, but he appeared on Sesame Street earlier on in 2013. He would later appear with the Muppets again, guest starring in an episode of the 2015 Muppet Show where he played poker against the Muppets. And most notably, he would of course host Sesame Street's 50th anniversary special. Here, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Lady Gaga perform Baby It's Cold Outside. This is notable for being the only holiday song that Lady Gaga sings in the special. She mainly sticks to the stuff from her new album, while the Muppets do most of the holiday stuff. Anyway, the two perform Baby It's Cold Outside, and this actually predates Lady Gaga's more famous version of this song with Tony Bennett, which would release, I believe, a year later. The version here actually swaps the genders. Usually it's the guy trying to keep the girl with him, but here, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's trying to leave and Lady Gaga wants him to stay with her. After the song wraps, we're then introduced to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. After watching this, we see Bobo the bear, who's talking with Kristen Bell about how he wishes he could dance, and she attempts to instruct him. This sketch goes on for, honestly, a bit too long, and has a very strange ending.
Did I step on you again?
I'm good.
Is that more blood?
Afterwards, before we cut to commercial, you guessed it, we have an interview segment. But this time, it features Kermit and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. You know, he should use his full name. I like that name. Robin. Kermit asks Joseph Gordon-Levitt about holiday traditions.
What's your favorite holiday tradition?
Well, for me, I just love getting together with my family and being together. To me, it's not so much about what you do, it's who you do it with.
I agree. That's wonderful. I personally like doing that and maybe an international television special.
Well, my family and I, we always used to watch you.
No.
We're your biggest fans, Kermit. I'm not kidding at all. It's a real honor to meet you, actually.
Thank you.
Honestly, when my mom and dad see this, they're going to be thrilled.
Well, let's do a shout-out.
Hey, Mom.
Dad.
We then get another backstage segment where Scooter appears to Kermit and Lady Gaga and tells them to stand by for a few minutes while they get some holiday lights ready. Lady Gaga and Kermit are happy to have some alone time together where the two of them can just talk. I guess they forgot about the gypsy scene, or maybe that didn't happen yet. These scenes of the two of them talking continue to be some of my favorite parts of the special. It's just nice to see these regular conversations between Kermit the Frog and Lady Gaga. It just works really well in my opinion. I think they bounce off of each other pretty well. Even if sometimes it does sound a bit too much, like Lady Gaga is attempting to flirt with a foam puppet. But hey, who hasn't, right?
Finally some alone time.
Yeah. Even if it's on a crowded set where we're shooting, it's nice to have a minute to talk.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's not so crowded now.
I also really like this part where they talk about how big their families are, and Kermit confesses to having 34,000 siblings. It's been a long-standing running joke that Kermit has an absolute ton of family members. Being a frog, of course, there are just a ton of them.
What do you do about thank you cards?
Well, that's tough. It takes us like 3 months to hang up our coats over the holidays, you know? It's crazy.
Do you have a big closet? Gosh, it must be bigger than mine.
It's huge. But we have the whole swamp, you know?
Oh.
Yeah.
I need to get a swamp.
Yeah.
Scooter pops in to tell Lady Gaga that they're ready for her, and Kermit says that she should come over to his swamp sometime. She thanks him by kissing him on the cheek and then walks away. But of course, whenever somebody kisses Kermit the Frog, somebody else must spontaneously appear.
Wow.
Come visit my pad sometime?
Oh, Piggy, I was
What
just...
is that? Is that lipstick on your cheek?
No, I don't think so. I was just trying to connect with her a little.
Connect with her. That's what you were doing. Yeah, I know how to connect with people.
Showbiz thing.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm going to connect with you.
What do you mean?
The next song performed is called Fashion, with an exclamation point at the end. I have to clarify that because Lady Gaga actually has 2 songs called Fashion. She has another one that came out a few years earlier, made for a movie called Confessions of a Shopaholic. Has anyone ever seen that movie? Let me know in the comments. Is it any good? The song Fashion, written for Art Pop, is a completely different song and has an exclamation point at the end. Probably one of the weaker songs here, in my opinion. Again, it's just my opinion, and that's very subjective. I don't know what the general fan consensus on this one is. But yeah, it's alright. Not as solid as some of the other songs performed here. Very, very Lady Gaga outfit she's got going on, though. Also, RuPaul shows up, kind of randomly. Another person who has worked with the Muppets on several occasions after this, but this was RuPaul's first ever performance on a Muppet special. After another classic Statler and Waldorf comment,
Now I've seen everything. Good. Then we can leave.
we get another Swedish Chef, Beaker, and Animal segment. This time, they're playing Jingle Bells, and not gonna lie, it sounds pretty good. Who knew Beaker could play the keyboard that well? I love how many times they've let Beaker sing over the years. They really take the fact that he only says me, to its full potential. But yeah, this is genuinely a pretty good performance of Jingle Bells from these 3. Nothing actually goes wrong. Animal does scream a few lyrics, but nobody gets grievously injured. No part of the song is messed up. Pretty solid performance. Just like how I said I really like those calmer Muppet songs, I also like when the Muppets are just able to perform a song with nothing going wrong. This is still a really funny performance, and again, there are no explosions or crashes or anything. It works pretty well. In the next interview segment, Rizzo asks Gonzo what holiday message he wants to spread to the world. Gonzo tells everyone that he hopes their holidays are full of warmth and joy and lots of chickens. Speaking of chickens, Camilla and the 2 other chickens come together to start singing We Wish You a Merry Christmas. The way the announcer introduces the next segment is just really funny. I'm just going to play it for you.
Coming up, Piggy finally reaches her breaking point.
Anyway, just as the announcer said, when we return from commercial, Miss Piggy does, in fact, reach her breaking point.
Ha! Gaga? What kind of name is Gaga anyway? Gaga! She gets to sing with Elton. She gets to sing with RuPaul. She gets to wear crazy outfits and big hairdos. And what do I get? A free copy of her new CD. Which is pretty good, but...
Guys, I'm starting to think this was made to sell an album. What do you think? Miss Piggy says she needs a performance. She needs a performance that is specifically, distinctly her. And she has a fantasy sequence where she begins to sing Santa Baby. She's backed up by the special's next guest star, a gospel choir called Youthful Praise, who does some great a cappella in the background for her. Now, I know the lyrics of the song say lines like, "for me," but it's just so weird to hear Miss Piggy say the word me instead of moi. As the song continues, though, Piggy's backup choir begins to outperform her. As you'd expect, there are a few lines different from the original Santa Baby. At one point, Piggy says, "Think of all the froggies that I haven't kissed." Piggy? Are you thinking about other frogs, Piggy? I also really like that during the part where she says, "I want a yacht," she just straight up stops singing and starts talking about how she wants a yacht.
Yacht. And really, I don't think that's asking a lot, do you?
Anyway, youthful praise begins to overtake the song once again, and they sound so good. They're really, really impressive. So cool that they decided to get a gospel choir here. Piggy, of course, gets very upset to the point where she stops singing and begins just insulting them. Even in her fantasies, Miss Piggy cannot help but be upstaged by other performers. Piggy gets everyone to stop singing so that she could talk to them. She tells them that they're all very talented, but you can't be outstaging the star, and she asks them if they could finish the song together, which they do. It's after this that the special begins to wind down, with Kermit giving his holiday message to the viewers.
Oh, I think my holiday message would be happy holidays, peace on earth, and may you have the best New Year's ever.
But before we get to the final number, the Muppets introduce the trailer to their upcoming movie, Muppets Most Wanted. The trailer is introduced by Kermit, Fozzie, and Pepe in a very funny scene.
We are here to tell you all about our new movies, okay?
The Muppets Most Wanted!
It's about
It's about an hour and a half.
Oh, this is true, okay?
Now, the YouTube rip that I used of this special actually didn't include the trailer, so I had to track down which trailer it was, and it was the second trailer for Muppets Most Wanted, which had actually officially released 3 days earlier on November 20th, 2013. While this trailer does show off a few of the movie's celebrity cameos, Lady Gaga's cameo was not included here. Actually, the Muppets don't even mention that she has a cameo in the movie, which is a little strange. When we return to the special, we return to a still very salty Miss Piggy, who is very upset about what she just witnessed with Kermit and Lady Gaga. Kermit reassures her that there's nothing going on between them, which she also reassured the press following the 2009 VMAs when they went on a date together. But that's when Lady Gaga herself arrives, lamenting that she still can't figure out what to do for the finale. Piggy tells her that nothing will come between her and Kermit because the two of them are together. But it's the word "together" that sparks Lady Gaga's interest, realizing that they have to do the finale together.
You think you're gonna come between me and my Kermit? Well, think again, because we are together.
That's it.
What's that?
Together. That's what we've been missing from the finale.
And they all get together to sing a reprise of Applause. It is a little strange to see Applause performed twice in the special, but it was the album's lead single, and like I said earlier, most of the rest of the songs on the album are a bit dirtier or darker in subject matter, so it's perfectly fine that they used the main song from the album twice. It's great to see all the Muppets here above and below her, including some very interesting choices like Mo Frackle for some reason. He's never really a significant character. I don't know why he's in the middle there. Since the Muppets weren't a part of the performance of Applause earlier, it's great to see them join in here, and all of them join in here. It does look a little awkward, and of course there isn't as much space for Lady Gaga or the Muppets to move around like there was earlier when she performed it on her own and, there was this huge choreographed dance. Here it's just her backup dancers behind her, surely covering up the Muppeteers for the Muppets that are above her. And while there isn't as much space to move around, the fact that you get to hear all of these characters sing alongside her really makes up for it. As the song begins to ramp up, the credits begin to roll, and the performance of Applause is intercut with some bloopers. We cut back and forth between everyone performing the song and bloopers with the song continuing to be performed in the background. I really love the inclusion of bloopers here. It just adds to the fun that the finale here exudes. Dude, look at Rolf absolutely jamming out in the background there. You could barely see him, but he is going hard. There's a blooper where Gonzo and Rizzo mess up during one of their interview segments. Another really fun one where New Zealand's boomerang fish doesn't leave his hand. I love how the rest of the Muppets react to this. Also, during this performance, New Zealand is just waving the boomerang fish around. I'm so glad that it gets to perform too. Miss Piggy and Lady Gaga seemingly make up as she replaces some lyrics to call out Piggy by name and gives her a hug. There's another really funny blooper where during the introduction for the Muppets Most Wanted trailer, Fozzie calls out Pepe for how he randomly pluralizes words, only for Pepe to tell Fozzie to check the script because it's in there, and Pepe just sort of hangs in front of the camera because apparently that's where the script is. Lady Gaga wishes everyone a very happy holiday as the special comes to an end.
Happy holidays! Happy holidays!
But the story isn't over just yet. Muppets Most Wanted would release as planned in March of 2014, and while it would still get pretty good reviews, it wouldn't do as well as the first film. While critics seem to really like it, the fan response is kinda split, as you can see here from the Rotten Tomatoes score. Now, Rotten Tomatoes isn't the most reputable source, but a lot of fans just don't like how Kermit is treated in the movie. I love Muppets Most Wanted, but that's definitely a viable complaint. But still, the Muppets were now fully back, and it wouldn't take long for the next Muppet project to be announced. In 2015, the Muppets would be making their return to TV. But if you're a viewer of my channel, or if you're just a general Muppet fan, you know what happened next. The new Muppet Show decided to be an office-style workplace comedy, with the Muppets working on a late-night show hosted by Miss Piggy. The show would aim for a more adult audience, with some more dirty jokes and mild profanity, something that the Muppets have done often. That wasn't the problem. The problem was, once again, how the characters were treated, with fans and critics alike feeling like the Muppets were all just jerks in this show. While it brought that edgy Muppet comedy, it didn't really bring much of the Muppet craziness, and it especially didn't bring any heartfelt moments. When the show went on its mid-season hiatus, it was heavily reworked in order to try to make it a bit more Muppety. And while the second half of the season is definitely better than the first half, unfortunately, the show couldn't be saved and was canned after one season. Unfortunately, the bad news just kept coming, as not long after the show's cancellation, longtime Kermit puppeteer Steve Whitmire would be fired by Disney for not complying to filming schedules, among other reasons. He would quickly be replaced by Matt Vogel, a wildly controversial choice to this day, as many people are not a fan of Vogel's performance of Kermit. Whitmire had also originated the character of Rizzo the Rat, who to this day has still not been recast following his firing, and thus barely appears in the modern day. After the failure of their show, the Muppets would enter another very strange era, returning to making little tiny web videos and doing promotional appearances. While they were able to get 2 live Muppet shows off the ground in 2017 and 2018, which are both great, they'd once again definitely entered a sort of slump. But with the advent of Disney Plus, it was time for the Muppets to return once again. Josh Gad was heavily involved in a series called The Muppets Live Another Day, which would see the Muppets reuniting after the events of Muppets Take Manhattan in order to find Rolf the dog who's gone missing. While the show certainly had an interesting premise, capitalizing on the little-used concept of Muppet continuity, it wouldn't see the light of day. Instead, in 2020, we'd get Muppets Now. Originally meant to just be a bunch of shorts, these would be quickly stitched together with wraparound segments. Unfortunately, said wraparound segments were filmed during the pandemic, which meant that they would just entail Scooter sitting at his laptop trying to get the show done. Of course, the pandemic meant the show couldn't be all it was supposed to be, but the segments that did make it in were really nothing all that special. Each episode only featured 3 segments, all of which were typically way too long and repetitive. For example, Miss Piggy's segment appeared in every single episode of the show, each time featuring the exact same guest stars. Muppets Now advertised itself as the first unscripted Muppet show, but the lack of a script meant that most scenes were really just kind of slow, and unless the Muppets were working with someone who knew how to quickly respond with a joke, like Seth Rogen had a segment that was really funny, and so did Danny Trejo, things didn't really turn out all that well. Muppets Now would, of course, also not see a second season. As you can see, the Muppets have been in an era of wild experimentation, playing around with different genres and concepts. This would continue into 2021's Muppets Haunted Mansion, a nearly hour-long Halloween special, and 2023's The Muppets Mayhem, a show that only featured the Electric Mayhem Band and some new human characters. And while both of these are pretty solid, especially compared to some of the other recent Muppet productions, it still stands that the Muppets have been trying out a lot of different stuff, and not all of it's been working. But that's where we are with the Muppets right now, in a really awkward position. Every new Muppet project is wildly experimenting with tone and the concept and what they're trying to do, experimenting with genres, with what characters are being used, and while the Muppets have always done that, in my opinion, now more than ever, it feels like they're trying to deviate from that classic Muppet formula. Now it feels like they're trying to throw things at the wall and see what sticks, and unfortunately, very few things are sticking well. In addition to these miscellaneous projects, the Muppets continue to do press stuff and be kind of pseudo-mascots for Disney sometimes, just like they were doing before the 2011 movie. In my opinion, what the Muppets really need right now is to stabilize. They need to find something that sticks and works and stick with it. And Disney needs to give them a chance to do this. They need to let a Muppet Show run for more than one season. The Muppets will live on forever and always have new projects, but right now, I think they really need one good one to stay. After the Art Pop Ball, Lady Gaga took a step back from the music scene, going on to release a jazz album alongside Tony Bennett in 2014, and not releasing her next mainline album until 2016's Joanne. A massive departure from her past work, as the album focused primarily on more country-style music and dropped much of the craziness known from her earlier performances. This more mellow era would continue into her first major acting role in A Star Is Born in 2018, which would propel her to new levels of fame once again. And while she later returned to bright wigs and mechanized at walkers on stage with 2018's Enigma Ball Tour and her next album 2020's Chromatica, I think it's safe to say that everything did really change after Art Pop. In the decade since Art Pop's release, the album's songs have rarely been performed. Most songs from Art Pop were just performed on the Art Pop tour, and then maybe a few times afterwards. After the Art Pop Ball, Venus would not be performed again until a 2017 Coachella performance, and hasn't been performed again since, despite being one of the biggest songs from the album. Applause has been a bit more lucky, being performed at all the dates of the Joanne and Enigma tours, but notably, not a single song from Art Pop was performed at 2022's Chromatica Ball tour. In 2019, 6 years after the album's release, Lady Gaga would tweet the phrase, "I don't remember Art Pop," showing just how much of a negative impact the album had had on her. But DJ White Shadow compared Chromatica, her album in development at the time, as a sort of little sister to Art Pop. White Shadow has been very open to discussing Art Pop and its cancelled sequel, saying that enough songs had been recorded to produce 2 albums, all of which he has saved. This would all come to a head on April Fool's Day of 2021, when White Shadow joked that he and Gaga would be releasing T, a song originally planned for Art Pop Act 2, as an NFT, because it was 2021, and NFTs were the big joke at the time. Ironically, this April Fool's joke would fully renew fan interest in the concept of Art Pop Act 2, and just a day later, on April 2nd, 2021, fans would create a Change.org petition, petitioning Interscope Records to let Lady Gaga release Art Pop Act 2, and to let her have full creative control over it. The petition would explode, getting over 30,000 signatures in just a few days. The only person who was absent from this conversation was Lady Gaga herself, who was actually in Italy filming the movie House of Gucci and had no idea that any of this was going on. White Shadow promised fans that if the petition got over 10,000 votes, he would send it over to Lady Gaga, and since it got over 30,000 in just 3 days, he proceeded to text her, telling her what was going on. After this, DJ White Shadow would post a message on his social media thanking fans for their support and saying the following. First off, let me say how grateful I am for all of you. You're some of the most incredibly loving and rabid fans in the world. I love you all dearly. I made an April Fool's Day joke about tea, sorry, and I'm amazed how much you all still care about that era and about some songs you've never heard. I can only say to you that I'm humbled every day that I'm able to share some of myself with you and for it to be loved in such a special way. To answer a couple of the questions, and in an effort to clear some stuff up with some honesty, I wanted to tell you a couple things. Making music and delivering it the way art pop was made and delivered was particularly difficult. Imagine it as if you were going skydiving and you're stuck in a free fall for what seems like forever, then smashing into the ground after your parachute doesn't open and having to do it again and again and again. Then imagine a bunch of people just standing on the sidelines watching you and stealing your wallet from your lifeless body every time you hit the ground. There are so many stories I can tell you about what it took to get art pop into the world, and one day I might. So many scumbags trying to latch onto the train I'd worked so hard to get out of the station. Let me tell you that I've never been so broken as a human being the day when that record was turned in. I was nearly dead. I felt trampled on and finished with music. At times I felt finished with life. In the years to follow, actually, largely up until last year, I've been trying to undo the trauma of completing that phase of my life. Some still lingers. That being said, I'm much better now, and much better for having gone through it. I'm strong and can hear the music with a happy heart finally. While I want you to hear the extras that you guys want to hear, I'd also like to make you some new things. I'm 100 times better at what I do now, and am at an all-time creative high. I'm ready to get back in. I'm ready, and whenever Lady Gaga is, we can get after it. That being said, try and be nice to her. She has feelings like any other normal person, and this era was a hard time for her too. I'm sure she'll be okay with revisiting it one day and building on it when the time is right. I'll continue to push for those songs you want so badly that Lady Gaga and I did, and I hope you'll get to hear them. Don't let them die. Continue to get your message to the people in charge. You have the power. Don't give up. Oh, and I sent Lady Gaga a text. I don't feel right about sharing our private talks, but I promise you all I did. A few days later, another fan campaign would begin. Hashtag #BuyArtPop on iTunes would quickly begin to trend on Twitter as fans went to buy the album in droves, eventually shooting it up to number 2 on the iTunes charts, despite the fact that it was nearly a decade old. On April 13th, 2021, Lady Gaga would finally address the situation on Twitter, saying the following. The petition to hashtag #BuyArtPop on iTunes for Volume 2 has inspired such a tremendous warmth in my heart. Making this album was like heart surgery. I was desperate, in pain, and poured my heart into electronic music that slammed harder than any drug I could find. I fell apart after I released the album. Thank you for celebrating something that once felt like destruction. We always believed it was ahead of its time. Years later, turns out, sometimes artists know. And so do Little Monsters. After filming for House of Gucci had wrapped, White Shadow mentioned that he was trying to meet up with her in LA at some point in June. White Shadow stated that if they were to meet again, they would go over the old files for Art Pop Act 2. Would we call it Art Pop Act 2? I don't know. But if the call is made and things start going, I'm sure she'll tell everyone when she wants to. She's the captain of the ship. After this, Lady Gaga would go on and continue her career. In the summer of 2021, she would release another jazz album with Tony Bennett, which she'd recorded back in 2018. She would then go on to do some live jazz shows, release a song for Top Gun Maverick, go on the Chromatica Ball tour, get cast as Harley Quinn in the Joker sequel, whose title I'm not going to try to say, film said sequel, get nominated for an Academy Award for her song from Top Gun, do more live jazz shows, release a song with the Rolling Stones. You get the point. She's been very busy. Update, while I was recording this, one of her songs got added to Fortnite, so there's that too. On the day of Art Pop's 9th anniversary, November 11th, 2022, DJ White Shadow would post the following. 9. Thank you all for all your support. You have my promise that I'll have something special for you on this day next year. I will honor this record as you have forever. Thank you so much. I will not delete this post till 11/11/23. On November 11th, 2023, the album's 10th anniversary, Lady Gaga's website would release a massive drop of Art Pop 10th anniversary merchandise. And that was all. From all I know and the research I've done, nothing really came from what DJ White Shadow had said, but honestly, I think that's alright. Fans are still very passionate about the album, but it seems Lady Gaga herself has moved on from art pop, and rightfully so. As a performer, she's always tried to evolve and continue changing and improving. Going back and making a sequel to a 10-year-old album just doesn't really seem to be her style. Even if nothing ever comes out of Art Pop Act 2, art pop will always be there. The transformation of art pop's legacy is pretty beautiful. An album whose story was once that of trials, tribulation, and cancellation has turned into a story of hope, perseverance, and unbreakable will. Like Lady Gaga herself said, art pop was ahead of its time, and maybe that time is now.